really know what's going on over there other than everybody's dumb.
The instant you step out of line, you say something that they don't like and they don't like you personally, they're going to use all those pre-existing laws and they're going to use it on you.
A woman exposed her male genitalia to women and underage girls. That's what happened.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way. It's super cringe.
Are live. It's 2022. It might even be 2023. James Klug, who actually made it into the intro. I completely forgot about that. New graphics, Eric Butler. James, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Dude, the intro looks awesome, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to be back.
No
yeah,
problem.
Dude, it's Happy New Year, guys. We're starting off
Year.
strong, man. That looks great. Good job, Andrew.
It's even a new year in Canada, believe it or not. We have the same, we have similar calendars, except for Thanksgiving. I don't know if anything else is different other than that. Oh, wait,
Boxing
Veterans Day.
I know you guys like Boxing Day. That's
Where did they even made fun of that in South Park. I saw a clip from their new COVID thing where they made fun of Ike, the little brother who's Canadian. He was coming down for Boxing Day, or coming from Boxing Day. The first thing off the top, I guess we can talk about is Marjorie Taylor Greene. You guys probably know more than me why she was banned from Twitter, which happened, I guess, today. We can go ahead and show, what is it? New York Post here, I guess we can show as our trusted source here. Let's pull that up. There we go.
I do like the Post, by the way. They're not too bad. They're not the worst.
They're not the worst.
No, they do a pretty good job.
Twitter permanently banned Marjorie Taylor Greene for COVID misinformation. Now, I had heard that it was for VAERS data, like vaccine adverse effect data. Permanently booted Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene from the social media platform Sunday. Repeatedly violated its policies by posting misinformation about the coronavirus pandemic. Now, didn't they set a precedent that says you can't ban a sitting person in public office, like this Trump rule that they had? I thought that they made that agreement. No,
I
don't think so.
I think they've. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the new normal, and they're pushing for that to be even more the new normal. I think definitely. I mean, if they're going to be banning the sitting president of the United States, they're for sure going to be, going after Republican members of Congress with pretty little pushback from, many people. I think this is kind of the new normal that we're playing with, which is incredibly, incredibly dangerous. I did hear that she was banned because of the VAERS information that she was posting. I don't believe that was today. Now, I've been kind of on, Christmas vacation. I'm not even technically back, but obviously love being on with you guys. So I'm actually, myself, I'm still playing a little bit of catch up, but that's the information that I received. I don't really think, I like to ask, and I think good on us for wanting to ask, oh, well, what did she post, right? And we should ask that question, of course, but the truth is, I don't think anymore that there needs to be a reason. If they don't like you, they're going to get rid of you. And we all know, they're going to be starting with maybe some more of the more far right individuals, not like bad far right, but just more far right individuals. They'll be starting with them, like they started with Alex Jones and deplatforming all these other people. Those are the people that they'll be going after first because they'll get very little pushback on it. They don't necessarily need that much of a reason. Oh, they were, she was allegedly posting misinformation. Well, according to who, right? Because is VAERS misinformation? Is pushing that just absolute misinformation? Or, is it according to them and the leftists at Twitter that don't like Greene, right? I mean, I was just fact-checked the other day for a story that was posted months ago. Obviously, those last on Instagram, those last for like 24 hours. I was fact-checked, and it gave me a strike on my account for literally an Instagram story. And it was a meme. They fact checked a meme, and it hit my account for that. So me saying, oh, okay, it was misinformation. I don't really trust their fact checkers. I don't trust these companies, and I think most Americans shouldn't.
No, I don't think that the fact checking has gone over too well for them. Candace Owens came out with a video a few months ago about that and how some of the fact checkers are owned by Chinese influencers. Interests, I should say. And of course, there's this other main guy who used to work for Facebook, who then started his own publication with the sole purpose of fact checking. That's a problem I see with a lot of it. And Eric, we went down a whole I want to say a month ago, where we found this website that we've never heard of, had no followers on Twitter. I doubt anyone's ever heard of it. And it's where places like MSN and Yahoo pull articles from. And it was just this girl and this guy. It was fewer than 3 people, I think we saw, writing all these articles for these really big publications to pull articles from. And they were just, as straight left wing as you can get, like the typical CNN bias you would see on there, or MSNBC. And it was just like a feeder propaganda source from people no one's ever heard of, from a website no one's ever heard of. And it seemed to have a sole purpose of just feeding these stories through, which I guess is probably a sweet gig for these people. But other than that, it just serves as, a cog in its own wheel. I want to read what Marjorie Taylor Greene's. Go ahead.
It wasn't long ago, right, that they came out and said, oh, well, the fact checkers are actually opinion. What was that, a month ago? That was around Thanksgiving, maybe
That was
a little bit later.
weeks ago, I feel like.
Yeah, that wasn't even that long ago. So they've already admitted, in the same sense that they admitted that they fortified the election after people finally start to catch on. And I shouldn't even say finally. A lot of us knew this for a long time. But when it gets the heat gets a little bit too, hot, they finally admit it. And I want to talk about something really quick about what James said when you mentioned the word far right. We've all, even for common sense guys like us, we've even been conditioned to the point where the term far right is like a bad thing when it's really not. I mean, look at Bryson, right? Bryson is I think maybe it might be like almost as far right as you can get, but we've been trained, everybody as a whole almost, to believe that term is just really bad. And they've done it with other things. I mean, you guys know about the euphemisms, even one of the most notorious ones that's been around for decades, pro-choice, right? I mean, they make it sound like it's really good, and now it's voting rights. So obviously the truth is up for grabs. And if the guys at Twitter, and this is the last thing I'll say about this, is it's very similar to how we saw when they got rid of Andrew Cuomo. And I couldn't stand Andrew Cuomo. I credited him with actually ruining my life at a point. But we knew that when he was gone, they were only going to find somebody who was worse. And that's exactly what it feels like at Twitter. Now, I'm not big on Twitter. I don't even know really how it works. But everybody hated Jack Dorsey. But then when he was gone, you realize that he actually wasn't that bad. And it's very similar to how we see Cuomo and Hochul and even de Blasio and Eric Adams. I mean, he's now, we'll get to that later, but he's jumping out the window already on day 2. So we've got a mess.
Well, let's see what she said here, because and I want to mention that, like, the reason they're saying they want to say far right is to obviously try to spin racism in it. They did that with alt-right, and then everybody was like, well, none of us identify as alt-right. And then, so now it's far right. Far right's supposed to be the bad thing. And eventually it'll just be right. Justin Trudeau thinks it's anyone who doesn't take a vaccine is racist and sexist. But she said, Twitter is an enemy to America and can't handle the truth. We don't need them. It's time to defeat our enemies. She then went on to say, they can't successfully complete a communist revolution when people tell the truth. She said, adding that communist Democrats can't stop the truth. I stand with the truth and the people. We will overcome. So that's Marjorie Taylor Greene. And one of the sort of
like how she says, we will overcome. That's almost like a little bit of jab at the left, right? Like maybe a little bit. Maybe I'm reading too far into it. Exactly.
Well, the thing, Twitter is weird because isn't there a large percentage owned by like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessarily. Is it Saudis? I think I was going to say Islamic dictator, but I think Saudis own a big portion of it. And so I'm not necessarily sure it's a communist revolution that Twitter wants. I think it's a leftist sort of thing brought on from other sources of power, but certainly they have some sort of influence in America. This is where all their tech gurus are. And I was saying before we went on, James, that I feel like Twitter and Instagram and even YouTube are going to become these places where it's just they only want video games, they only want makeup tutorials, they only want their news. Then everything else is going to have to be pushed on to a different platform.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, that's absolutely correct, except for they will normalize it to where it's going to be an echo chamber for the left. And if you're, challenging it in any way, they're going to make sure to literally destroy your life. Now, this isn't just a problem of big tech. This is actually a problem everywhere in our country. In fact, Hollywood's a good example of where this is already the case. For sure. I mean, you come out saying anything remotely right-leaning, you better be a top dog in Hollywood that can't be canceled because of how big you are. Because if you're if you're, you know, at the bottom of the food chain, you're never getting a job ever again. Now, tech, this is becoming this new normal, and they're always testing how much they can get away with, but they already banned the president of the United States. What is Marjorie Taylor Greene to them as well? And, you know, people on the right, if there's anyone that's kind of looking at this, just saying, oh, well, she violated their policy, blah, blah, blah. The direction that they're going, and it's very clear, the direction that they're going is, you know, like I already said, getting rid of people that are maybe a little bit louder, right? And then you're next, right? So it's going to be very important. People that are listening to this show, they need to understand that, you know, maybe 10, 15 years down the road, you're not going to be able to listen to this show unless you're subscribed to, you know, Rebel or anything like that, and physically getting it from their website or wherever it is. Because, you know, although it's green today, it's going to be outlets on, you know, YouTube or even my platform, James Klug, youtube.com/James Klug. That might just be gone. I might have to work through a website because they're just getting rid of everyone that opposes what they say. Eric brought up how they're kind of conditioning this far right to mean racist, and that was really interesting that he brought that up, because, you know, a lot of this is social engineering. You hear the word far right always associated with something just crazy negative. And they really do strategically use this wording to describe people that usually are racist or something like that. So then when you hear far right, you think of racism. And then, you know, you'll see in the same article, maybe they're talking about someone that in our view, or maybe they're objectively far left, such as, like, let's say AOC or something. They won't describe her as far left, you know, Congresswoman, the AOC. They won't do that. They'll only do it for right-leaning individuals because they're trying to paint this picture. But that's just classic social engineering. Now, all that stuff is going to come down to what this future holds for, like, future content and stuff like that. So it's always super important to support, obviously, Andrew, your guys' show directly and everything like that, not just watching it through YouTube or wherever you guys have it, but directly supporting you, because they're gunning after you next.
I'd like to hire you for my head of marketing, James, please, if you don't mind, after that. Very good-looking man.
It's true, though. I mean, they are gunning after us. They will take out these individuals that are maybe louder and more, you know, they're public individuals such as Green. But, you know, if they're willing to silence a president, a congresswoman, all this stuff, they're willing to silence us with absolutely no problem.
And I would go as far as to say, actually, what? Sorry.
I said, luckily I live in a country whose government is very inept. I'm not sure they're capable of going after people. Like, they're capable of physically going after people. That pastor in Calgary just got arrested again last night, for the 5 millionth time. But as far as their, like, actual ability to come out, I don't, like, there's very little layer between me and Justin Trudeau. There's, like, me, then his staff, and then you're at the top of the country. Canada is a very small place in terms of that. Like, it's weird though. We go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask: is, in your opinion, Andrew, is Canada a little bit further behind or ahead of the United States when it comes to supporting this censorship? Would you say? I mean, we have a First Amendment, a proper First Amendment. I don't know if Canada kind of looks at that the same way. I don't believe that they do.
People think we have some sort of free speech that we actually don't have. So, like, from the outset, the idea that they have of it is usually false. But I would put that into the category of nobody cares. Nobody's actually going to come out and do anything. There are very few things that people care about in Canada. Looking polite, seeming polite, hockey. There's honestly not much else you can get. People just want to be left alone. But with that comes not doing anything as well, though. So, like, would people not like the censorship? Probably like 75% of people would say no, it's bad. How many people would actually be vocal or do anything about it? Less than 5%. I mean, the compliance level here is out of this world. And I was talking to my friend about this last night. He works as a paramedic, and he says he argues with people every single day about the vaccine mandate, even though he's vaccinated. And all of his coworkers are arguing with him, he says, about vaccine mandates. And that's basically how it is up here. You're going to get around 90% of people saying, you know, they probably should lose their jobs. We should lock down again. Quebec just went into another curfew, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. My dad lives in French land there, France too, we'll call it, and just nonsensical. We're back around to the same place we were a year ago. Omicron is coming at your door. It's knocking down your door, and for some reason in Quebec they need a curfew in the middle of the night. It doesn't make any sense. They're just going.
I think a lot of the
back
people
around
don't.
a circle.
No, I think a lot of the people just don't value freedom. I think this is kind of a trend that we see in free countries all across the world. We maybe we grew up looking at Russia or China and be like, oh wow, I mean, those people, they're not living in a free country. Look how oppressed these individuals are. Like, this is terrifying. We would never become like this. And a lot of these people living in kind of totalitarian countries, I would say most of them in China specifically, let's say, they're trained. There's social engineering. They're trained to love their government, their country, stuff like that. And maybe they don't know how oppressed they are. But even people in free countries, you kind of look how free countries are, and folks in free countries, they are fighting tooth and nail to get rid of freedoms, get let's say free speech, let's say gun rights, all this stuff. It's really interesting. People's kind of natural, I think a lot of people's natural lust for having a government be their daddy. There's this control that they want because they're uncomfortable with taking responsibility for their own lives. I mean, if there was a curfew that was happening in California, there'd be massive protests happening. But I think ultimately in California, people would accept a curfew for sure, because a lot of people just don't want to fight back. Some countries people are fighting back, but a lot of areas in the United States, that would absolutely work out with pretty little pushback.
Well, it's almost like the grass is always greener on the other side, right? Like, you can look at these other nations and say, well, look at them. How did they get that bad? Like, you know what I mean? So we're here fighting, or not us, but some people here are fighting for more mandates and wanting to force people into their way of thinking, while we can look at the other side and say, you see what I'm saying? It's like, it's always backwards. It seems like we have what other nations want, and other nations have what some people think they want. Of course, they don't really want it. But I wanted to say one more thing about Marjorie Taylor Greene really quick, is that I think they actually, to your point, James, it's going to be hard. They're going to go they're more insane with the censorship, because I think they might have had this inkling that maybe when they got rid of Donald Trump, that they were sort of cutting the head off the snake, and everything should have just quieted down. Like, see, we got your leader, now everybody shut up. And then it didn't happen. So now they're even more angry than they were the first time. And we all know that the anniversary of J6 is coming up, and we're going to hear about that nonstop for at least 2 weeks, right? I mean, they're gonna start talking about
at least
half
1 year. You mean?
Yeah, it's gonna be insane. And by next January 6th, by January 6th, 2023, the whole story is going to be completely diluted, as if it already isn't. I mean, I don't think anybody really knows exactly what happened, and that's how they want it to be. But as the years go on, it's only going to get more and more diluted. It's like that story. Remember Brian Scalabrine? Maybe this is a little bit off topic, but he said that he won a championship with the Boston Celtics in 2004 or whatever it was. But by 2025, he was going to be the MVP of that game, and his kids were going to think he scored 50 points. And that's how it's going to be. It's going to be this completely diluted story. And we know that they've changed history. Who knows what's really accurate anymore? But that's exactly what they're going to do. And they're very angry with the people who haven't shut up after Trump got kicked off, and after, I mean, you name it, Alex Jones. I mean, remember Milo, all these people that they got rid of, and it just keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to keep getting angrier, and it's going to take less and less and less for you to be booted off Twitter. You can just say that, well, I don't even want to say it, because then we'll get kicked off all the platforms, but you can't say the word Bruce, and you can't say the word HQC, and there's all these little things that they're just going to say that is misinformation, that is hate speech. You got to get rid of it, and it's going to get tinier and tinier until Andrew, like you said, it will only be knitting tutorials and cat videos, which I guess is kind of what they wanted right at the beginning. The cat videos and stuff were funny, and then I can pinpoint the moment we lost it. That was 2 Girls 1 Cup, but that's a different story. And I'll move on. That's what I think.
The marker of a societal downfall right there.
Exactly.
2 girls, 1 cup. I think
Yeah.
it's very important to have something concrete like in a constitution to argue from a point of. In Canada, we don't have that. It's like we're trying to we have to convince our government why we deserve our freedoms. Because at this point, it's been 2 years of them saying just a little while longer, just hold out a little bit more. And we don't have something to say, no, this is what we're going off of, and this is what you need to adhere to. We don't have a concrete constitution. It says right at the top that it's subject to an emergency order, which is a terrible problem, especially when they do it on the provincial level, the state level, where they say we can pull you over and arrest you for anything during an emergency order. So they tried out this order, they all vote for it, and then you can't do anything. So for a year and a half, they've had this thing where they can pull you over for any reason. They can detain you for any reason, basically for the safety of COVID. Now, whether it's coming from a religious standpoint, I'm not religious, but you could argue that, Christian values are very much in line with a free society. Of course, all religions come with problems. And if you're going to have a state run by religious rule, you're going to run into wars and stuff like have happened over time. But if you have something like the Constitution, which I would prefer, then you can say, hey, no, I have the right to bear arms. I can say whatever I want, as long as it's not a crime under other things. You've got all these, pleading the Fifth Amendment, all this stuff that I simply do not have in this country. And it's like, I'm tired of asking people who, I know somebody personally who's friends with a person who works for the premier of the province. So like there's 1 degree of separation, like I was saying, from myself and the leader, our leaders in government. It's that small of a circle, but they get to tell me what to do with my life. They can tell me where I can go. They can tell me the limitations they can put on my business, the citizens' business, and they can handle $100 billion every year. There's this guy who works for the Federal Conservative Party, who keeps Rebel News reporters out of press conferences, out of events. He's just some nerdy guy. I think Sheila Gunn Reid called him King of the Nerds or something like that, because he's a really scrawny, nasally guy, and he's just he's his own personal dictator. So no, you can come in. I'm the communications director. You can come in. All this, and then once you enter that room, all of a sudden you're surrounded by people who are deciding how $10 billion are spent each year for the rest of the province. So it's a really crazy situation, and I'm pretty sick of having people, who aren't smarter than me. They're not smarter than you guys. They're not smarter than a lot of people running the country and telling me what freedoms I should and shouldn't have. And the places to go are, what are we down to? Arizona, Texas, Florida, Tennessee. If you're boring like Eric, you can survive in South Dakota. Stuff like that. And that's it. And that's what we have to consider now, I guess.
I miss South Dakota.
I think let's see. I wanted to touch on a couple of those things. I think definitely. I come from a Christian family. A lot of my friends aren't religious, but I would consider myself to be a Christian. I don't really use my platform so much for kind of religious talk and stuff like that. But I will acknowledge something. I do think that it's harder to take away a society's, United States, let's say, God-given rights than just government rights. So the more secular I think our nation gets, the more people don't care about these God-given rights. They don't care. They don't really value these freedoms as much as they once did. I do agree with Andrew, your point. Yeah, of course, all religions have their faults and stuff, but when it comes to the benefits of religious communities, they tend to take care of each other better, the charitable giving, stuff like that. The more secular our country gets, the more selfish we get, because the highest power in our life is ourself. Now, I might get crapped on from maybe atheists or agnostics for saying that, and there's a lot of amazing atheists and agnostics that I know personally in my life, of course. However, I think as a whole, on a communal level, religions are very, very, very important. I did want to say also, for the Constitution, all day I'll take having a Constitution, the United States Constitution, over no Constitution, right? But I do think that these laws and these rights are only effective for as long as people value them. Let's talk about the First Amendment or Second Amendment right to bear arms. as long as our culture values these things, values your right to self-preservation and your right to own a gun to defend your family or property, and in the case of government completely, interfering in your life and trying to take over your life in every respect, you have the ability to resist them, not just domestic but foreign enemies as well. As long as the culture values those things, the Constitution will stand. But what they're trying to do in the United States big time is trying to absolutely change that when it comes to not really valuing free speech, right? That's why they talk about hate speech. Maybe hate speech doesn't exist in the United States. That's not a thing. Hate speech is free speech. You can decide to be a complete jerk, but you still have that free speech to be a complete jerk. And I think a lot of what they've done in the United States is trying to get away from valuing those rights so they can change that. And that's what we're going to see. I mean, that's what we're seeing right now with tech censorship and stuff like that. A lot of old-time Republicans or conservatives are like, oh, well, just go start your own Facebook. I'm sure you guys could agree that's a really stupid thing to say, because they're literally, I mean, these big tech is that flow of information that is the media now. And so Democrats have seen this, and they use this as that kind of political arm because it's very beneficial. They've also basically taken over all these industries to where all the folks at the top are Democrats or leftists or whatever they may be. But anyways, yeah, no, it's I think when it comes down to it, ultimately, we probably need to do some sort of reform to Section 230, which was designed initially to protect social media companies from, let's say, being sued for like having porn on their website or something like that. And now, instead of actually being platforms, they've really become more of publishers, because they're giving you the approved opinions. Anything that's not approved is going to be banned, like we saw with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
And
yeah, I think, Eric, you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I just think that they should have to just follow the law of the land of the United States. If they're going to be companies operating, they shouldn't have this protection any longer. They clearly abused it. And I think they should just have to follow the law. You can't harass people. You can't threaten people. You can't incite violence against somebody. You can't, traffic human beings. You can't do all these sorts of things that are against the law. And I really get disappointed, because it seems like just as often as the World Economic Forum asks people to eat the bugs, usually Ted Cruz every 6 months says, let's abolish Section 230 or change it. And he doesn't really accomplish that either. As much as I like Ted Cruz for other things, he has promised that many times, or tried to push it through many times, and has not been successful. Trump didn't do it. So many people haven't done it. I think Texas was the closest to do it. Did they not do something? And then they still banned Gab, or they labeled Gab as something, and people didn't like that.
Didn't Florida try to do something also? I think DeSantis tried to pull something off as well. I don't really know if it went through, or if it was accomplished. But really briefly about that, I mean, they say, oh yeah, go make your own, but we all know that not only is it just a crazy undertaking, but outside of that, as soon as, you can go make your own, they're not going to let it on the App Store. We saw what happened with Parler, right? They're going to say, oh well, the App Store will not support this. So they're still gonna attack you from numerous different angles when you do try to start your own. And really briefly, to take it back a little bit, as far as the, I guess, religious aspect, I didn't realize this until I got much older, but you realize, I know now that as a kid growing up in San Francisco, in the the Bay Area, they really were, from a very young age, trying to eliminate any religious aspect. I mean, I can remember like people getting laughed out of the room for saying they believed in God and stuff. So they have been trying to get rid of this that religious aspect for a long time, because I mean, long story short, if you don't believe in God, then you will believe that, in my case, Nancy Pelosi or Gavin Newsom or whatever was basically your God, and there's nobody else you can look to. And it's only, and I will credit Trump with, kind of kicking down the sandcastles and exposing a lot of the fraud. Now, I kind of got, I guess, a little red pill from the individual mandate, but I'm getting off topic here. The point is, it seems like for decades now, they've been trying to eliminate religion, and I guess it's kind of paying off. Now the new religion is, of course, Rona and Fauci and shots and pills and all that stuff. The
government
industry. Yeah, exactly. So that's it.
It was
I was going to say really quick. When we were younger, I feel like, sorry, Andrew, when we were younger, I think we look at a lot of like government officials as being like really intelligent. Like, wow, like look at this person, this even this president. I mean, whatever it is, this person works for the government. They must know what they're doing. And then you get older, and you're like, wait a second, these people are idiots. Like, and that's something that you realize when you get older too. Is these people might know how to do things less than me, or they definitely do. Like, I'm a dyslexic guy that didn't go to college, but I look at some of these people that are the most highly educated individuals in the land, that are, the most powerful individuals in government. I'm looking at them like, you're an idiot. You've never been in the private sector at all. You've just been doing this your whole life, and you know how to tell people what to do. Like, these people get drunk with power, and truth is, a lot of them are like pretty moronic when it comes to knowing how things actually work, or just even common sense. I mean, I think when you get drunk with power, you kind of just you I don't know what you just go after what gives you more power and not what makes sense for the people, I guess.
Absolutely.
Anyways, that's all I want to say.
Well, I think before you get outside of like the real leftist Hollywood pop culture centric bubble, the person on CNN that's called an expert in this, and you're just like, oh, why would I question that? The person's an expert in their field. Same thing with coronavirus. And I always think back to when Trump said something about Sweden, and he's saying things are looking bad there. I think it was related to like the Malmo, like firebomb attacks from Islamic groups there.
Okay.
And then Sweden's official statement was, we have no idea what he's talking about. And John Oliver put this on. He's like, Trump says this, and then Sweden says, we have no idea what he's talking about, as if like there's no bias in the Swedish politician's opinion or anything like that. It's just like you accept whatever they present to you as being an official opinion on something, and there's no debate on it because you can't. These people are smarter than me. And I said to my friend when I was arguing with him last night, and it's like, do you really think these people are smarter than you? And these are like these people instituting these lockdowns. Like, I know you don't, but yet you're willing to like argue. You're willing to give credence to their side on things. We were specifically talking about our gun ban list in Canada, which is hilarious. They obviously can't ban things based on the mechanics of guns because that wouldn't make any sense. So we literally just have a long list of guns that are banned. It's the ones they find most scary. And a lot of people, and they added to it like 2 years ago, or less than 2 years ago at this point. And they do it every time they win an election. They're like, we're going to curb gun violence, even though there's barely any in Canada.
There's also no such thing as gun violence. That's another one of those euphemisms. I'm sorry, that one triggers me to the max. There's no gun violence. Did the gun get up and start robbing people on the subway platform? No, it's insane. Sorry, gun violence, bro. And that's the one that they've been using for so long, and it's slid in and it's got into our vernacular as well, and it's complete and total nonsense.
Yeah, I think the worst part is people are so willing to be controlled that, like, the truth is, ultimately, let's say, what we look at China doing. They obviously oppress their people. It's a totalitarian regime. These countries that do allow, and sorry to break it to you, Andrew, but these countries that do allow this stuff, these people that are willing to be completely dominated, not all of them, of course, there's great people, but if the majority is willing to just be dominated by their governing body, they will end up just like China. They will end up that direction, because if the argument that keeps winning is, oh, well, it's the good of the collective, you want to keep everyone safe, right? Like don't worry, the government's going to control more of your life. We want you to be safe. If that argument keeps winning, and the argument that which truly is the argument against freedom, if that argument keeps winning, that's the only direction that you can possibly go. So that's really what people, I don't know, especially with COVID, when it comes to these COVID mandates and stuff like that, like, this was the death of critical thinking and people's ability to see into the future. They fully adopted being short-sighted, and it didn't matter what rights they were giving away as long as they felt more comfortable.
And they went and got in line to get a test.
It's happening all over the place. So you get your bajillion tests. Oh my God, the numbers. So we're live on Getter, so we should give a shout out to the people. Give a shout out to the people there. A real algorithm there. Algorithm even. And Joe Rogan just jumped on board. Tim Pool's on board there. Lots of people there. Twitter continues to ban users from his platform. Podcast superstar Joe Rogan announced that he's getting to set up a Getter account just in case shit over at Twitter gets even dumber. I'm here now as well. Rejoice. So that, of course, is in reference to the guy he had on, the inventor of the mRNA vaccine, who was just on his show after he was banned on Twitter, and he probably saw, I'm pretty sure Joe Rogan doesn't agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene, but he can see censorship, and far right figure Joe Rogan defends such and such now. And it's like, how far, like, the person who invents the vaccine can't be talked about, the person who invents the PCR test can't be talked about. It's going to be like, soon enough, Mark Zuckerberg's going to be banned, like if he gives up controlling share of Facebook or Meta, it's going to be like Mark, the former owner of Meta, and his far right tangent that he went on Joe Rogan or something. Imagine the day when the Zuck goes on Rogan. I'm sure it'll happen eventually, guys. I don't know.
And isn't there
if we
that
should be
clip
waiting
now
for that.
of Rogan floating around, kind of like, I don't want to say endorsing, but basically saying that Michelle Obama is going to be she's great, and Obama was the best president and all that stuff. Is that recent?
I think he
I
said
don't
that
know.
a
I
few
saw the
times
clip.
where he thinks that.
But was that a recent clip, or was that that was an old clip, right? And it's just like,
He said it more than
familiar, but
once.
Joe Rogan's a liberal. He's
Okay.
he's a liberal, but I think in a traditional sense, I don't think a traditional kind of liberal, like free speech, is a liberal idea, right?
It was.
No, I mean, it still is by like the proper definition. I think what we're dealing with now is a lot more leftism and what liberalism really turns into. Like, it's so funny because, Eric, you're talking about how they kind of brand far right a certain way to make it sound just the scariest thing ever. And obviously they do that on purpose. But the truth is, I mean, a lot of these folks on the left, a lot of our friends on the left, they're going further and further and further and further left. I haven't really changed. I haven't gotten more far right or anything like that policy wise. I think my disdain for some of these people has certainly increased, no doubt about it. I'm sure a lot of people at home feel the same way, and I'll be honest about that. But when it comes to my policies, I'm pretty. I haven't really shifted very much. These folks on the left, they're going so far left, and it's almost like being on a football field, and you're center right wherever you are, and that the person on the left is going further and further left all the way into the end zone, and they're looking back and they're saying, why are you so far away from me? What's going on here? It's like, you're walking away. I'm not. You're going further left. I'm not going anywhere. I'm literally just chilling here. You guys are losing your minds.
And I can testify to that simply because I don't want to say I was like, I grew up on the left, but I grew up in San Francisco, and it was just the default position. So
For sure.
I could see it happen. Like, I mean, when I was in college, which wasn't that long in the grand scheme, I'm not that old just yet. But when I was in college, it wasn't, where, to the point in San Francisco, by the way, like basically where this stuff comes from, San Francisco, Berkeley, all these little cities, I guess Portland and Seattle contribute to a lot of this as well. But when I was in college, there wasn't a bunch of people who were demanding that you call them a woman. There was some gay guys and drag queens and stuff, but at the end of the day, it was still all based in reality. And somehow in the last decade, it's just been all completely lost. And they're the ones going further and further left. I mean, I think I will admit that I've moved further right, but that's just a product of me getting old and having to spend my own money and pay taxes. That's just the sort of thing that happens. But
For sure.
you could watch
Naturally.
it. Yeah, exactly. But you can watch it from somebody in the Bay Area, and you're from California. Southern California might be a little bit less left wing if possible, but you can see the derangement happening. I mean, you've even got now the San Francisco district attorney fighting with the mayor because she wants to stop the crime, and he's like, no, let's not do that. It just doesn't make any sense, and they keep going further and further left in this sort of AOC realm where the only solution is to keep going left until it just falls off the cliff, which is basically what's happened.
Yeah, I think that's the only direction that it really goes. And dude, this is so funny. I'm remembering a conversation that I had a long time ago. I think it was maybe like 9th grade in high school. My friend was liberal, and he was kind of figuring out that I wasn't. I wasn't, I was just trying to figure stuff out, but I definitely knew I wasn't liberal. And I told him, I was like, the only direction that your beliefs are going right now is towards socialism. And I think high school's definitely gotten a lot more political nowadays, for sure. No doubt about it. I graduated in like 2012. But I had this conversation. He got so mad at me. He's like, absolutely not. Socialism's evil, all this stuff. It's not going that direction. And I was kind of looking at him like, well, yeah, of course it's going that direction. What are you talking about? Like, it's obvious once you see it. Like, politicians, they're not going to ask for less. They're going to ask for more and more and more. more and more power. So it was pretty obvious to me at the time, and I was just a kid. And looking at it now, I know that guy's definitely full socialist, which is like hilarious. But it's exactly what I had predicted when I was young, and this is kind of just the natural progression of leftism. And I think back to our point talking about Joe Rogan and stuff, it's not that Joe Rogan is this like hardcore right-wing guy. I know he's upsetting his left-wing base big time with all of this stuff, but he's remained consistent, let's say at the very least, when it comes to traditional liberal values, preserving, like valuing freedom over, giving your rights away for the comfort of the collective. Like that's just, it's just communist rhetoric right there. It's absolute garbage. I'm sure in North Korea, there's very little graffiti. How awesome is that? There's probably also very little crime. Beautiful. Such a great thing. Now, but back to Joe Rogan, I know that he, from what I can at least see on his show and stuff, it's not that he's more Republican or conservative or whatever it may be, but he's definitely realizing, whoa, this is kind of getting out of control. And, CNN is doing hit pieces on me because I'm saying factually accurate things. And the only people that are willing to agree with me, or at least sit with me, are people that are somewhat conservative leaning. He's going to find that more and more problematic the more he starts to wake up, for sure. No doubt about that. But I don't think he's like really shifted too much. I think that the left, back to my original point, has just gone off the rails, just way too far.
They moved the window so far left. And I've noticed, and you guys have probably noticed this too, but even the words, I'll call him Carl Malone for the sake of censorship, but even this guy's name is triggering that specific notification on Instagram where it says, well, these vaccines go through rigorous testing or whatever the notice says, but it's not even like
they're
a
on
meme.
Damage control already.
Yeah, they're on damage control just by the man's name showing up in a post. It's not like, I don't trust this, I'm not gonna get it, here's the proof why it's all wrong. It's just the man's name. People are saying, okay, this episode got censored off YouTube, and just the printing of that man's name is triggering these notifications. So it's gotten way out of hand, and hopefully it's got to hit the wall and bounce back. I don't know. I don't know how we get out of it. I mean, we can just keep talking about it until they censor us all. See you guys in the gulag, I guess.
Yeah, they probably made that episode 10 times as popular as it even should have been. I'm sure it deserved, a lot of views and very interesting conversation. I actually didn't watch it yet. Like I said, I was kind of on vacation a little bit, but I think a good rule of thumb is just, if something is being banned from YouTube, Twitter, whatever it is, any content, go out there and watch it. Honestly, go out there and watch it, because you might find that the person is just absolutely nuts or something like that. Maybe it's just a waste of your time. Great. But you might also find that the system doesn't want you to be exposed to certain information, and you might actually learn something. So absolutely go out and watch that stuff. I think that's probably a new rule I've made for myself. So I'll be sticking to that.
And that's how just really quick, that's how I got into that's how I was introduced to Ben Shapiro, right? He's kind of like the entry level. That's when you start to realize that none of this stuff makes sense. And I can remember a protest in Berkeley, California, and they're like, we got to get rid of this guy. And I was like, why? What's wrong with it? And somebody showed me a Ben Shapiro podcast, and I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. All right. And then that's why they're so adamant about stopping it, is because as soon as you get to hear it, you're like, oh, that actually kind of makes sense. Oh, that's not so bad. This is not so bad. And then it's a slippery slope to the point where you're far right.
One of the very first
exposed to good ideas.
Yeah.
One of the very first YouTube videos to get the whole you can't like, you can't share, you can't comment. One of the first restricted treatments was actually a video called like the Jewish question, but it was debunking like neo-Nazi theories. It presented their arguments and then took them apart and showed why Holocaust deniers were wrong in this video. But nobody, like the censors didn't care. It was just literally the title. They had to censor it. And that's an example of like, you don't know what it actually is that they're censoring. So you need to go watch it. They ended up deleting this guy's channel because he was doing a lot of the, he was digging into child trafficking. And so they obviously got him out of there pretty quickly. But that just goes to show you, like proving your point. Like, they thought it was so bad that it was worth, censoring. In reality, it was actually quite reasonable, and people were just so afraid of something of that nature that they had to ban it immediately. Again, and so somebody doesn't cut this up, it was actually something debunking Holocaust deniers in the video. Yeah, Eric, we gotta be careful here. George Soros is watching. Funny story. I just remembered George Soros. Okay, so there's this thing right now. It was on Fox. It was on Tucker. And what's happening with Rebel News is one of the banks denied a bank loan to us. I don't know how much I'm supposed to say, but denied a bank loan to us for a mortgage, and based up for political reasons.
Yep.
And I'm going through one of the comments, and they're like, "Can you really trust Rebel News?" And their link to debunk us was a premium paywall show that was talking about George Soros. And somebody was like, "How does that have to do with any of this story? Like, what does that disprove?" And the guy's like, "Just shows that they're crazy." And the next story he links to prove that we're crazy is a Media Matters link. So on one hand, us attacking us. So on one hand, us doing a show about George Soros attacking people is a lie, but also a link from George Soros's website attacking us is somehow also evidence. And like, this is the sort of stuff that people get into without actually reading it, and you just got to actually read the stuff before you make a huge judgment call on this.
It's so funny. You don't even need to be like right leaning to kind of hear that story and just be like, okay, that's objectively a bad argument. Like what are you doing? You know, it's so funny because it's like, you know, whenever I look at this stuff, I like to think, if I were to be just totally neutral and looking at this, are they creating a good argument or a bad argument? And they could be creating a good argument against you. That can happen. Left wingers can do that stuff. However, something like that is just anyone being honest with themselves, or anybody is going to look at that and say, okay, that's a load of crap, right? And that's why when it comes to these fact checkers and stuff like that, let's say social media and whatnot, you know, these are like left, like pretty far leaning, left leaning groups that are fact checking, and primarily, if I had to guess, being used against right wingers, or at least from what we can see, as you know, right wingers are under attack on social media, which is pretty obvious. But it kind of just brings me back to my other point. You know, the word fact checker, it was fact checked. That has so much weight behind it. A lot of people turn off critical thinking when they hear it was fact checked. It doesn't matter that it was fact checked from some far left group, or that they fact checked something completely absurd, like that meme that I brought up on my Instagram. That was an Instagram story, and I got a strike on it recently, but it was posted a few months ago, and it was it was a Daily Wire meme, and they fact checked it and struck me for it. You know, these people, they're definitely not dedicated to the truth. They're dedicated to suppressing their political opponents, for sure. And as soon as you kind of realize that, then you can kind of say, okay, you can ask like the right questions. A lot of people aren't maybe politically savvy, or maybe they're not involved enough to be asking these questions. They just hear that you get fact checked, and it's like, oh, well, you got fact checked, or you got an article written about you that says you're bad. I'm gonna. A lot of people just believe them, because I think a lot of people just aren't they don't have their kind of eyes open yet. And as soon as you do open your eyes and see that stuff, you're like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of theater here.
Yeah, and they just throw it into the ether. So it doesn't, right? I mean, they can just say, like for instance, I can go back home to San Francisco, and I've literally had friends of mine. Now, this was a couple years ago, like early in the Trump administration, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, didn't that guy do something racist?" And I'll be like, what are you talking about? What happened? Like, well, I don't know. I just heard something in the news, and it's like they just throw it out there, so it's in the ether now, and it feels like that. And they don't really know what's going on, but it's kind of like a brainwashing thing, like the jingles that you hear on commercials. So you don't even know what you're repeating, but you know you heard it somewhere, and it might be true, it might not be true, but it's already smeared somebody somewhere, and that's an awful part of this.
100%. As long as they keep repeating a lie, it becomes a truth, right? So
Exactly.
They keep repeating the same lie over and over again. Doesn't matter what it is, but then eventually because a lot of people don't know that CNN or MSNBC or these left-wing outlets, New York Times, let's say, for example, right? A lot of people don't know that these are left-wing groups that are giving you the news, and they keep repeating the same leftist talking point to where your average individual, let's say at home, just kind of hears it and says, okay, that's I'll accept that as truth, because everyone's saying it. Little do they know, everyone that's saying it is left-wing. I was in DC doing a video with David Leatherwood. He Brokeback Patriot on Instagram. And we were doing a video, and she was saying, "Oh, well, what news do you guys watch? Like, are you guys reading Breitbart or what is it?" And to answer that question, I read everything. But she said, "I read unbiased news, like the New York Times." And I was I was snickering because that's like really funny actually, but it's also horrifying because of how dishonest the left tends to be when it comes to when it comes to the news. They put on camouflage like they're objective news and they're dedicated to the facts, but the truth is they are left-wing news. Now that's totally fine if you're going to be open about that, right? Rebel, I'm sure, is pretty open about being conservative news, correct? For the most part, I would imagine most shows and stuff, let's say Daily Wire or something, or Newsmax, that's conservative, more conservative news for sure. Left-wing news tends to pretend that they're super objective, and so it fools that individual at home, like I said, that maybe doesn't have their eyes completely open watching what's going on. And I'm not really mad at people for that either. I mean, most people don't sit around thinking about politics all day long. I do. I know you guys do too, but most people don't do that. So they kind of just accept that what they're being sold on face value, right? But yeah, I mean, I wanted to give that story just because they are very good at pretending that they're objective news, for sure.
Absolutely.
I was arguing with my friend's girlfriend. I argue with a lot of people, it turns out. I'm just realizing she's watching this YouTuber channel where he basically goes, like this one was he's at a fish concert parking lot. And look how crazy and kooky all these people are. It's very like early YouTube political, where you just like go to this thing, find 5 stupid people and be like, this represents everybody. And she's like, he says he's unbiased and he goes on other shows and says that he believes in real journalism and, actually paying attention. And it's like, but that's not what he's doing. The fish concert's not the only thing this guy goes to. He's gone to Trump rallies. He's gone to all sorts of stuff. He gets his 10 people.
Do we name names or do we not know the names?
We can name names. I can find it. It's like News 5 or whatever it's called. I don't know. I'll be able to find it in a second and then I'll bring it up.
I'm just curious.
News 5, I want to say, something like that. But he's a YouTuber. It's a guy who he purposely dresses like silly, sort of, and he's from the 90s, and he just interviews people. And it's obvious that the idea here is get 10 people to look silly, and then you can say how silly all these people are, and you get views. And it's just not as unbiased as anybody wants to pretend that it is. Like this guy. He's not actually unbiased. He chooses these events for a reason. And what gets clicked is what people figured out in 2015 is showing people being ridiculous. Now, people have evolved from that. I would say most people, except for one YouTuber who I care not to name, who's in the political sphere. Let's just say he wears his sunglasses all the time. That's as far as I'm going to narrow it down. Everybody evolved. That's not a credible thing to do. Okay, and this guy still does it for fun, whatever he goes to the fish concert. I'll keep bringing up that's the last one I saw. But it's not unbiased. It's just a way to make money, and that's why they don't exist in the news space. There's no such thing as this unbiased source. And one of my smartest friends thinks the same way with some of these legacy newspapers up here. And it's he thinks he's a centrist. He thinks that he's a rational person who thinks about both sides. And I'm just there's no actual middle that you agree with. You just want to be able to it all comes down to wanting to be able to get along with people. And you want to get along with people. You don't want to argue with them too much. You don't want to disagree to one side and piss people off. And I get that. But don't tell me that that's your actual viewpoint is I'm a rational centrist and I would govern the country and everybody would agree with me on both sides. Go ahead.
And I know I keep interrupting you, but I get excited about some of these things you're talking about. Honestly, that's such an interesting point that you just brought up. And from my personal experience, I just want to say, I have noticed that people do that when they want their opinion to be elevated as kind of a point of authority, right? Oh, well, I'm unbiased, so my opinion is very strong here because I'm unbiased. I'm centrist. I see both sides. I'm so open-minded, and maybe you're a little bit less because you have a strong opinion of something. Honestly, it's just a trick. From what I've seen, and I've had, you guys know, I talked to, by the way, and Andrew's talking crap on street content. That's all I do. But
I'm not talking crap on street content. I'm talking crap on one particular person who never evolved from all of us doing. I did the streeters too. I don't know how far back in my history
love
you've gone
and I
to.
love your content too.
I think we should see
it.
more streeters from
I
both of
don't-
you guys, by the way.
It's somebody who
To be
never
something.
evolved and I always thought was a little bit smug. I disagree with him on some stuff, but he just never evolved. And it's not, and I don't mean not evolved by didn't stop doing streeters. What I mean is didn't evolve past the type of streeters that he does, which is just like, well, what do you mean? You guys are so silly. Oh, I'm going to catch you with this question. Like everybody realized that there was something better.
How about you just
beyond.
like let's just stop the subs
For sure.
and just say the name, bro.
I think
one day.
All right.
I think 100%. I think when it comes to doing that stuff as well, you can choose to be fair about it or unfair about it or something like that, right? Like for me, I have like unfair videos where it's like I have a fake petition doing something. We talked about this stuff. I have a fake petition, get people to sign it. It's just conservative content for laughs or to show like, holy crap, James actually got people to sign that. But it doesn't really mean that much, right? And then there's other content where it can be heavy on information and stuff like that. And, I think as long as you're being truthful of what your stance is, that's great. People know that you are a conservative, you're on the right, stuff like that. So they know what they're getting. And then they can decide if they watch the video, they can decide whether they think it's fair or not. I think some people, for sure, in 2015, 16, when that kind of started, some people were just being totally unfair. Which is at that point it just becomes like entertainment or whatever it may be. But I forgot what I was going to say. Andrew, what were you talking about what were you talking about when I was saying I wanted to touch on it?
I was talking about people not being actually unbiased, but I found the guy. I think this is the old channel he used to be on, but now he's got his own channel.
I know
obviously
this guy.
He went to Proud Boys rallies, and like it's look how dumb everybody is. You don't have to like them. Motorcycle rally, Bigfoot hunting, like the idea, like he doesn't go to a Bigfoot thing to be like actually explore their ideas, which is fine. I don't believe in Bigfoot, but the point is, and the point I was making to somebody, like his bit is to go there and show you how stupid they are, and therefore you watch it and get 3.7 million views.
Yeah, he does really well.
It's safe for YouTube, and I'm gonna make money on it because it's not espousing any opposing views. Now he's got some new channel now. It's like Action News 5 or something. I don't know.
Okay, I think that's funny that you brought that up. So he's definitely left leaning. I've actually seen him in person.
Of course, exactly.
Yeah, he's definitely left leaning. And like you said, he definitely pretends to be a little bit more maybe objective. But I think most people probably know he's left. Maybe they don't. Geez, I don't know. But from what I could tell, it's he's for sure a left leaning guy. I've talked to him in person. He's a pretty nice guy. But I think the right's it's so funny. The right is so much more accepting of like people at these events to where I saw him with Proud Boys and stuff like that. And everyone was just he even had some fans in the group because they thought some of his videos were really funny. Truth is, he was there to make them look as bad as possible in his video. But that's definitely a big difference between right and left there, right? I mean, like, I can't go to an event in Los Angeles without being called out anymore and probably potentially like chased down the block or something. I mean, people are pretty ruthless. They've also gotten more aggressive. So like that whole 2017 street interview at like events, let's say, I don't know, Women's March, something like that. You get called out and people, they're a lot more aggressive with how they handle you now. Definitely at a right-leaning event though, like he's way more welcome than I would ever be welcome at a left-leaning rally nowadays. It's all
backwards.
Actually.
It's all backwards, right? Like it's all. I mean, you remember that super viral video from a couple years back, probably around the time you guys were talking about with Millennial Millie, and there was that Trump, the anti-Trump guy who thought everybody was a racist, and then she like it was really funny. I think that like couple seconds went viral where you can see in his eyes that he's like, oh, like yeah. So it's crazy.
Who's Millennial Millie again? Which one is that?
Millie Weaver used to be on InfoWars.
And then she had like some drama with Alex Jones. I don't even know anything about that. But there's that clip where she takes the black guy to the Trump rally. It was a Trump rally. And she goes into the Trump line. And they're like, yeah, come on, brother, like have a beer or whatever. You know, I guess I can admit maybe it was a little bit rednecky and that's why they were scared of him or something. But then she takes him to the other side of the
I
street.
believe it. Honestly, I believe that. I really do.
And you see in his eyes, you can pinpoint the moment where he's like, "Oh, like I've been tricked. Like I have been tricked." So it happens. Yeah.
I remember this video for sure. I mean, maybe there could have been some editing there, but just from, I guess I'll speak on my personal experience here. From being at so many events and stuff like that, like that's usually how that would go, right? I mean, they're going to be, hey, that's awesome. Come on over here, check it out. Like, we want more people. We know that we're the class that's just being dominated by every establishment in the United States. So we want more people. I think the left has definitely gone a different direction with that for sure.
There we go. 2019. Oh, I thought it was older than that, but whatever. Yeah, that's a classic. We don't have to play it. I think we'll all remember it. You know.
How many views does that video have?
This version only has 20,000, but it's a re-upload by some guy, so it has millions.
Oh,
it had millions at the time.
Yeah, it was a good video.
Shout out InfoWars. Alex Jones answered my phone call. Did I tell you, Eric, that Alex Jones pocket dialed me a few weeks ago before the
no?
break?
That's amazing though. You were.
I think I'm blacklisted. I think I'm blacklisted by InfoWars for some reason. I have Alex Jones's phone number. I called him, left him a message. He butt dialed me back. All I could hear in the back, I just hear him talking.
You were so excited by your
this and that.
By the you were so excited by the Merry Christmas message from Will Witt. I didn't get to hear about.
Oh, that's true. Shout out Will Witt. We got a little time left. I'll let James choose what he wants to talk about. I want to play your latest video from Newsmax, but do you want to talk about after this Jack Murphy guy? You want to talk about the Marine from January 6th, or do you want to talk about Aunt Jemima?
I think we could have some fun with Aunt Jemima.
Okay, let's play your video first. Latest one, James Klug on Newsmax.
I've said it before. I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm not going to shut down the country, but I'm going to shut down the virus.
I think he's delivered on that promise.
No. Absolutely not. Bring back Trump.
What's going on, everyone? James Klug here. Joe Biden promised to shut down COVID in 2020. So today we're in Los Angeles, California, and we're going to see if people believe that he's delivering on that promise. Do you think he's delivered on that promise?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Absolutely not. Bring back Trump.
I'm thinking he's doing the best that he can do because there's a lot of people getting in his way that are trying to resist the vaccine.
He's working on it because, the COVID is very complex. Now we have variants of that. So he's trying the best he can for our country.
We just restricted travel from South Africa as well as 7 other countries. A lot of people brought up the southern border. We've set a record on illegal crossings. Is that problematic when we're trying to prevent travel by air but not by land?
That's a question. Yeah, I don't know.
It has to do with protecting our health and not bringing in this variant. Yeah. Now, as for the southern border, we have to control the immigration issue there, and I know the Biden administration is trying the best they can.
Do you think that having an open border is problematic when it comes to that?
Absolutely. Joe Biden, I hope, if you hear me, I hope you're still working on that.
All right, everyone, that is it for today. Some definitely believe that Joe Biden is doing the best job he can, but many are not confident in his ability to keep his promises that he made in 2020. Reporting for Newsmax, I'm James Klug.
Would you ever hear people say Trump's just doing the best he can? If it,
I think can I just say really quick, I want to see more of the disinfectant. Just bring the disinfectant everywhere, and that is going to be the key to millions of views on every single one. That was hilarious. I might have to repost it today because I'm just thinking about it now. And those, I think was that video when you were doing the disinfectant, you were trying to convince people to get 3 masks. I mean, great stuff. Kudos on all of these. But I can't help but laugh to myself when I think about the you spraying down the clipboard for like 20 seconds at a time.
Well, I don't know if people have seen that video, but that during that scene of the spraying the clipboard, I when I was doing it, I was hearing he's also with a group of like 4 guys, and I had my camera guy, and then I had 2 friends that were like across the way, and I could hear them. I could hear them snickering while I'm trying to like keep a straight face spraying this clipboard. Obviously that video is unrelated to this one, but by the way, I did want to people are going to ask this right away. That was a triple mask petition. Basically, it was like a federal mandate, petition to support a federal mandate of triple masking. We do those ones, and those ones are just straight fun. But that one is brutal. It deserved more views on YouTube, I swear, man. But whenever COVID's being talked about, I think they kind of just take it out of the algorithm a bit.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've noticed. Maybe I'm just making an excuse for my poor performing video. But
here's the mask or the visor.
Yeah, it's great. But for that video that you just showed, I know people are going to ask this, so I just want to say it. That was a segment on TV, so it was a short video, right? But out of the people that we talked to, surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, people are definitely not standing up for Biden that often. I can go out and pursue finding people that are going to stand up for Biden. But that one I was just trying to grab like a quick pool because we were making a video for TV, right? So that's gonna be like 2 minutes long max. And we were shocked by how easy it was to find people that were just like, no, he's doing a crap job. And I think that maybe is an objective truth, right? Because you're average American, maybe they were pissed about COVID. They're seeing Biden, borders wide open. Nobody seems to have a plan. He said that he had a federal plan, but then he, later said, we all knew that he didn't. And then now he announces that there's no federal plan and it has to be done on a state level. Republicans have been saying that for a long time. But it's whenever I go out and do these Biden videos, man, like I know I'm ranting.
And that's in Los Angeles.
So
we're not talking
easy.
about.
That's what I'm saying. Los Angeles, it's so easy to find people criticizing. That's crazy.
We've been lied to. That's it.
The hard-hitting news story that I frantically messaged you guys from inside of Walmart was Aunt Jemima rebranding as the Pearl Milling Company. And I was like, maybe it's just their parent owner. They didn't go that far. But no, they've rebranded as the Pearl Milling Company. You see Aunt Jemima there. So now I have to boycott them. There's 3 other brands of maple syrup there, Canadian syrup. Eric's got a joke about that somewhere. But it's just like, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric. We've talked about this and I've shared my conspiracy that the actual plan here behind the scenes is let's get as many people, visible minorities off of things as we can by guising it as it's a racist thing. No more Goya beans, no more Uncle Ben, no Aunt Jemima. Am I insane for thinking that might be the actual reason behind it? Because it's literally hurting nobody.
And Land O'Lakes, remember the butter too, the
right,
lady. Or
so when you see Eric as a non-white man, when you go and see Uncle Ben and Aunt Jemima, does it offend you?
Dude, okay. Well, obviously, I had never thought about this until they started canceling these people. It never offended me a day in my life. I'm sure when I was growing up, my parents probably had Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben's. I don't know for sure. I mean, I never paid attention to it. It wasn't until it became until it got canceled that I just out of petty spitefulness decided that I like these things now. Same with the Goya. I didn't really seek out Goya beans until people started freaking out about it. And then I see it in the Brooklyn bodegas and I'm like, I'm going to buy 10 cans of Goya just to spite these people. So this is another event, I guess, maybe kind of like the Streisand effect where they're like, because of course they're going to claim that they're saving you. Like, we're going to save these poor downtrodden people, but you're really just, infantilizing, I guess, these cultural minorities. I mean, these are mascots, and they do it. We see the same in sports, whatever. The Washington Redskins
football
or maybe
team.
The Blackhawks. Yeah, it's crazy. So it's just textbook Democrat, like 1984 doublespeak stuff. It's just textbook stuff. I mean, I want to just ignore it, but we can't go back now, right? The Land O'Lakes people are not going to say, you know what, we were wrong about that. We're going to put that little Indian lady back on the thing. All I can do is choose not to buy it and maybe buy another brand of butter. I don't really know what we do about this, man. We've come too far. I don't know how we work our way out of this, wet paper bag.
I love the whole like anti-racism movement. Oh, black lady on syrup, get her off of there. Racism is so over.
Exactly.
Over. Get her off there, though. It's like, what on earth is this? I think because we talk about like you mentioned, the Redskins, Aunt Jemima, these little things that you're like, what the hell is going on here? These aren't a big deal. Why is society pissed off about this? Society is not pissed off about this. In fact, angry white liberals are pissed off about this because I guarantee if you did a poll the black community, they'd be like, yeah, Aunt Jemima's a legend, bro. Like, put her back on. I know that there was definitely a poll about the Washington Redskins where they polled Native Americans and they had no problem with it. So this is a white liberal thing. And I think when society is generally pretty good, we're living in a pretty good time in history. I know there's a lot of problems that we have to combat, such as censorship and stuff like that, or just, radical leftists taking black women off of syrup. But I think they tend to, go after random things. They kind of create issues during good times. And, because we're not dealing with a civil rights movement or anything like that. I mean, we're really not dealing with anything that's like super, super, super major when it comes to those. And I know we're dealing with serious stuff, and obviously, but like, we're not dealing with like slavery anymore or anything like that. Any discrimination when it comes to that stuff, aside from maybe discrimination of folks on the right. I think they
And the unvaxxed
create these issues because they want to feel as though they're like white knighting something. Oh, and the unvaxxed, great point. Yeah. But they want to feel as though they're kind of like white knighting something. They want like some movement to fight against. That's why they push like issues like the lie of the pay gap for women, stuff like that. I memean, they like want to create more issues. I think that ultimately actually gives them power when it comes to creating these issues. But as for Aunt Jemima, I think that it's just a bunch of pissed off white liberals that think if they take this black lady off this syrup, racism is so over. So
yeah,
It's
we
some
saved
sort
your
of
life.
weird little power trip where it's like same as like swearing at somebody on a video game, then just logging out before they can say anything back.
And can I just say, then this will probably get me canceled. I don't want to get the whole show canceled, but I will say that my time spent in South Dakota, you do kind of understand. I had never really thought about where the term redskin had come from, but you spend a year in South Dakota and you start to see, like this does come from a little nugget of truth. I'm just going to leave it there.
In Canada, the Edmonton Eskimos, they did a poll to like it's the dumbest version of it. They did a poll: is this offensive to Eskimos, to what do we call them, Inuits up here? And they 75% no, or over 70% said no. On top of that, when the team was created, it was created in partnership with the tribe closest to them. Every single year, the team goes and does charitable events on the tribe land. They have a close connection to the tribe that helped name the team. And still, in spite of all this, in spite of the poll, in spite of their close relationship with the tribe, they still changed the name to the Edmonton Elks. Nobody cares. It's Canadian football. It's the worst league in sport, in my opinion. All right, we've gone long here. Thanks, James Klug, for joining us. He's James Klug on everything, including YouTube. You can see him here, and all of his latest videos are also on Newsmax as well. Eric is on TatumReport.com and Report and Opine, his latest article about the Biden administration making $137 deal. Eric's fat.
Oh, that is a typo. That's not me. That's a million. Good catch.
What a major deal right there. Major deal.
Good catch, Andrew.
$137. Well, we'll just go ahead and scroll down then. 137 million with Millipore Sigma, division of Germans, Merck something and other, increased manufacturing capacity of limited component of rapid tests. Yeah, this giant. This is why I think Tim Pool said he linked this article and said it'll never go. COVID's never going to go away because now they're making a giant deal with somebody to make tests. Eric, I have a different issue. It's the fact that there's a person named River Nile. I want you to tell this person personally that I don't want their fake name on my news. Okay, the person's name is not River Nile, Eric. There's no way it's River Nile. I'll never accept that this is this real person's name.
I'm not accepting that either.
No,
thank you.
It's definitely not, and we'll save that for another episode. And we got to fix that typo. I'm gonna have to go back and fix that typo because it's definitely a million. And I want to watch. Did you say Tim Pool made a video about that? That sounds very interesting.
No, he might have. He just tweeted that COVID will never end because of that.
Yeah,
you go digging through your own stuff. Hold up the book, Eric, before we go. Hold up the book. There it is. There it be. Thank you, James Klug. Thank you, Getter, for hosting us. Joe Rogan's on there. Everybody get a Getter account, or Eric's coming to find you.
it up, Jordan.